Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and today it's the Week 7 rankings for the wide receivers. That's what we're talking about, and my boy Pat Fitzmaurice is here to help us break down those rankings, and I want to know about his rankings versus our guest from CBS Fantasy. He's my good personal friend and friend of the show. Frank Stampfl is back to enjoy some fantasy football talk with. And Frank, I'm going to press the guest right at the top of the show like I always do. Sam Darnold is now eligible to come back. Your old former quarterback, Mr. Jet, is back potentially for the Carolina Panthers. Is Sam Darnold the best chance we have to unlock DJ Moore the rest of season?
Oh, gosh. This is what it's come to, huh? I think the answer has to be yes, right? Baker Mayfield looked awful early on in the season. I do think play calling has something to do with it. Obviously, PJ Walker did not work out last week. They had Jacob Eason come in because Walker was dealing with an injury. DJ Moore looked good last year with Sam Darnold at the helm, and I think that is our best chance to get DJ Moore back to high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2. I mean, this is someone that was drafted probably in the 3rd or 4th round in most drafts. I have a lot of shares myself. Clearly, it has not worked out, but the answer is yes, Joe. I do think Sam Darnold's our best chance to get DJ Moore back to respectability.
There you go. Buy low, everybody, right now. But this isn't the trade show. No. This is the ranking show. So we're going to kick things off here with fantasypros.com/rankings and our ECR. We're going to find out the variance between our friends here and the groupthink of the expert consensus ranking. Let's start with Mike Williams, a player that Pat has ranked at 10 overall at wide receiver. Our boy Frank Stampfl has him at 23. ECR's got him at 7. They love Mike Williams this week. So, Pat, you and the ECR seem to like Mike Will. What is there so much excitement about in your mind this week after last week's underwhelming performance? Let's just put it kindly.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's going to be some overreaction by people who have invested in Mike Williams because he did not click in week 6. He went up against Patrick Surtain Jr., who might be the best cover man in the NFL this year. So I have dropped Williams to wide receiver 13 on the news that Keenan Allen is practicing again, and Chargers head coach Brandon Staley seems optimistic that Allen is going to play this week. But I don't think Allen's return is in any way ruinous to Mike Williams' fantasy value. I had Williams ranked ahead of Allen preseason. And look, the Seattle pass defense is not the Denver pass defense. They are graded 30th in pass coverage by PFF. They are graded 26th in DVOA for their pass defense. This is a bad pass defense, and I think there's plenty of opportunity for both Mike Williams and the returning Keenan Allen to victimize the Seahawks this week.
Well, no Patrick Surtain this week, so that is a good thing for Mike Williams. But Frank, you seem to be living in the past. Why have you not caught up to the ECR when it comes to Mike Will in week 7?
Yeah, this just comes down to Keenan Allen for me, and I fully admit I could be wrong about this. Mike Williams could just be the wide receiver 1 for the Chargers moving forward, but I think all of the data that we have from last year and the minuscule sample size of one half of football that they've played together so far this season, Keenan Allen has still been the wide receiver 1 for the Chargers, and I'm basically just operating under that assumption for the time being. You know, Keenan Allen saw 25% of the target share last year compared to 20% for Mike Williams, and I know Williams has had some really big games this year. He's also had some duds. Granted, Pat Surtain is very, very good, one of the best in the league. Mike Williams is wide receiver 24 in PPR points per game, and that's without Keenan Allen in the lineup. So I kind of just view Mike Williams as like a glorified Gabe Davis for now. And again, maybe that's just selling him short, but I'm going to operate under the assumption that Keenan Allen is still this team's wide receiver 1.
There you have it. Another great wide receiver in the NFL is Amon-Ra St. Brown. We are giving away an Amon-Ra St. Brown autographed helmet right here on the show, thanks to our good friends at pristineauction.com. Head over to fantasypros.com/contest where you can go ahead and enter today. And here's how you do it. You go leave a review of the show over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pods. Leave a nice 5-star review. Talk about the pod, how much you're enjoying the pod, how much the pod has changed your life, or at least had a good impact on your fantasy season at the very least. And don't forget, not only is that an entry into the contest, but every time you follow us on social media, on the Twitter machine, on TikTok, on Instagram at Fantasy Pros. Those are all extra entries into the contest as well. So get in on that at fantasypros.com/contest and go get that Amon-Ra St. Brown helmet. It's glorious. Go check it out. All right, let's get to the next guy on the list here, Pat. You have at wide receiver right now, Drake London at wide receiver 24. Frank's got him at wide receiver 34, ECR at 22, much closer to you, Pat. So what are your thoughts on Drake London and your confidence level here? Because it seems you've got him pretty confidently as a wide receiver too, whereas Frank's got him as a back end 3.
Yeah, I'm more confident than the Drake London stakeholders because I know there is a palpable sense of angst coming from those people these days. He gets off to the great start, has 2 touchdowns in his first 3 weeks, and in his last 3 games, 0 touchdowns and has topped out at 40 yards. So last 3 weeks, not very productive. But man, this dude has a 32.6% target share. And I realize the Falcons don't throw a lot. So that 32.6%, translated to a team that throws a regular amount, you'd have to knock a few percentage points off it for sure. But a marriage of talent and opportunity. And he is getting opportunity. He has got a very safe target floor. Not a great matchup against the Bengals, but I believe in the talent and the opportunity combined here. He's still a low-end wide receiver too for me.
All right. Talent and opportunity aside, Frank, you're saying he's a fringy guy this week. So tell me about your thoughts and maybe your concerns at the recent trend going in the wrong direction for Drake London in terms of statistics.
This one is pure pain for me because, Pat, as mentioned, I am someone who has a lot of Drake London this year, and I loved it the first couple of weeks. I'm like, yes, I got the breakout rookie wide receiver. This guy's going to be awesome. And then he's just kind of fallen flat on his face, and not really by his fault. It's just kind of this Falcons offensive philosophy that they're working with right now. 22.8 pass attempts per game, 31st in the NFL. I believe they're 6-0 against the spread. They have been competitive in every game. They have no reason to change their offensive philosophy. I think they're just going to continue to run the football a bunch. Mariota, mostly a game manager. He'll take off and run whenever he needs to. But as a result, it is affecting Drake London negatively. 33% target share, 32% of the air yards. It's all great, but the volume metrics just aren't there right now for Drake London. So as a result, more of a middling to low-end wide receiver 3 for me. And maybe I knocked him down a few pegs just because I'm mad at him, because I have him on all.
It's supposed to be business, Frank, never personal. Never personal. Let's get to the last guy on Pat's list who's higher than Frank's list. Romeo Doubs, wide receiver 27 for Pat this week, wide receiver 33 for Frank. Now, ECR's got him right where you do, Pat. This is a really good matchup here against the Washington Commanders secondary that, frankly, is not very good. So is that the reason for the enthusiasm this week with Romeo?
Big part of it. Washington has allowed the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers, and the Commanders have given up 8 touchdown catches to wide receivers. It's also the usage, Joe. 86% snap share or higher for Doubs in each of the last 4 games. And over that stretch, he's seen at least 8 targets in 3 of those 4 games. The Packers don't have Christian Watson, hamstring injury. They don't have Randall Cobb anymore, high ankle sprain. It's going to be a lot of Lazard and Doubs. Those guys are going to get, all the snaps and targets and routes that they care for. It's an all-you-can-eat opportunity smorgasbord for Lazard and Doubs this week. And I love the matchup against Washington. So pretty good setup here.
Now, Frank, it seems like you're not really coming to the buffet. It seems like you had a snack right before and you're a little full when it comes to Romeo. So why don't you have him as a wide receiver 2 this week?
I think the argument against for Doubs in this spot is that he is the 2nd or even 3rd passing option because Robert Tonyan has emerged for the Green Bay Packers, especially last week, in frankly a bad offense. The Packers have not been a good offense so far this season. This could also be the squeaky wheel spot for Aaron Jones. We hear Aaron Rodgers coming out and say what we need to get Aaron Jones 20 plus touches in this spot. And just from a game flow perspective, they are 5-point favorites here. So perhaps they're playing with a lead. Don't love that argument because they have to get the lead, and obviously Doubs can help them get that lead. The argument for, you mentioned it is a fantastic matchup, and Doubs was inside the top 12 in air yards last week among all pass catchers. If this game is competitive or Green Bay for some reason is even trailing, I could see a huge game for Romeo Doubs. So I could easily be wrong on this one, and I'm willing to admit that, but I do have him a little bit lower for the emergence of Tonyan and the fact that I do think that they want to get Aaron Jones more involved in this game.
All right, let's flip the script a little bit here to the guys that Frank has higher than Pat. JuJu Smith-Schuster finally had a good week. And I say finally because that is accurate. You've got him as wide receiver 25. Frank, clearly that went a long way with you. Not so much with Pat. He's got him at wide receiver 32. ECR's at 26. In transparency, I've got him at wide receiver 33. I ain't buying it. But talk to me, Frank, about this matchup here against the San Francisco 49ers and your feelings about JuJu. He seems to have gotten back into your good graces. Should other fantasy owners out there as well be confident in starting him this week?
Yeah, these are perhaps my famous last words, right? But yes, let's trust JuJu Smith-Schuster. Honestly, it's just blind faith, I guess, in the number 2 pass catcher for a Patrick Mahomes-led offense. The usage has been on the rise for JuJu Smith-Schuster, too. He's played 87% of the snaps over the past 2 weeks compared to just 67% in the first 4 weeks. So perhaps he was dealing with something early on in the season. He's getting healthier. He's playing more. And he also ran a season low percentage of his routes from the slot. So they're using him more on the outside. At least they did last week. And perhaps that ultimately helped him turn in his best game of the season. We know it was a missed tackle, and he ultimately sped down the field. He looked great. Like, that was like the healthiest he's looked all season, in my opinion, for JuJu Smith-Schuster. 49ers typically have a great defense and a great secondary, but they are dealing with a bunch of injuries in that part of their defense. So there's a few different things here going on. Is the usage is getting better. Number 2 pass catcher for Patrick Mahomes offense. Injuries to the 49ers. As a result, I do have him as a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2 for this week.
All right, Pat. Is it a mirage or are you buying the JuJu? Because from the ranking, it doesn't seem like you are. After going wide receiver 66, he was wide receiver 7 last week. So that's a big jump.
Yeah, and here's a fun stat for you, Joe. Before last week, Patrick Mahomes' passer rating on targeted JuJu Smith-Schuster throws was more than 10 points lower than Baker Mayfield's passer rating. Now, yeah, that's
pretty bad. Sobering. Wow. Okay.
Now, after
who needs coffee when you have that stat in the morning?
Yes. Now, after last week, when JuJu's 5 targets yielded 5 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown, Mahomes' passer rating on throws to JuJu has soared all the way up to 84.4, which is 0.3 points better than Carson Wentz's passer rating on the season. So, yeah, I mean, last week worked out, but for the most part, we have seen JuJu like wearing defenders like a well-tailored suit. Like, he's just never open. Like, watch a Chiefs game and JuJu is just not open most of the time. He's well covered. So maybe he gets open this week against the 49ers slot corners, K'Wan Williams and Diamadore Lenoir. Like, they've been really bad. So maybe this matchup benefits JuJu, but I don't know. He's the wide receiver 35 after the big game last week on the season, and that seems like the right neighborhood for him.
All right, let's switch gears to another wide receiver here. DeAndre Hopkins makes his return. Will it be triumphant? Well, it's hard to tell right now, but we're going to do our best to figure it out. We've got DeAndre Hopkins right now, wide receiver 19 for Pat, but you've got him, Frank, at wide receiver 13, so you've got him ranked higher. There's certainly a need with Hollywood Brown out for the foreseeable future, I believe, for the season. I don't know if it's officially come down yet. We know that, but look, we're not anytime soon. We all know it. So Hopkins right now is wide receiver 20 in the ECR. He's moved up from wide receiver 36 to 20 in the last 24 hours. So do you think that Hopkins can get right back into the swing of things with Kyler Murray on Thursday night?
I think so. That's the hope, right? Is that Hopkins just really steps into this Marquise Brown role as the alpha in the Cardinals offense, an offense that frankly has looked terrible for most of the season. But there was a graphic on that game last week where they showed the splits for Kyler Murray's career with DeAndre Hopkins and without. And he's a far better quarterback with DeAndre Hopkins in the lineup. Now, I don't think D-Hop is the same player that he once was. I think we saw that last year. I think he's lost a bit of a step, was a little touchdown dependent. He was wide receiver 20 in points per game, but there's just so much opportunity here. Marquise Brown was the wide receiver 7 in points per game this year. He was 4th in the NFL in targets, and the Saints could be without Marshawn Lattimore. We'll see what happens with that on Thursday Night Football, but we saw it without Lattimore last week, what Jamar Chase was able to do against the Saints defense. So it's a combination of the role, the matchup for DeAndre Hopkins, and the fact that 4 teams on a bye, no Stephon Diggs, no Justin Jefferson, There's an AJ Brown is out this week as well. So as a result, that's just pushing DeAndre Hopkins further into that wide receiver one conversation.
And even the secondary guys, Gabe Davis, Adam Thielen, Devonta Smith. Let's not forget about all those guys too that aren't going to be options. So Hopkins is going to be in a lot of lineups, most lineups, I would imagine, Pat. If you held on to him this long, you're putting him in there. So what are your thoughts on what he can bring this week after not playing for the first 6?
Yeah, I think he can step right into that wide receiver one role. So I've got him a little bit lower, and I think Frank painted a pretty good picture of what the value profile, I guess, is for Hopkins. Like, yes, they need him. Yes, he was slower last year as far as his production. Really, his target count. He'd averaged 9.6 targets a game his first 7 years in the league, over 10 if you take out his rookie year. And then last year he averaged 6.4 targets a game. So you wonder why he dropped off so precipitously in that area. I also think, and maybe this kind of reflects my rankings, like there's a Cliff Kingsbury tax. Like, I just don't trust this offense at all. I don't trust Kingsbury's. Things are always terrible in the first half when everything is scripted by Kingsbury. And then when, like, Kyler is drawing up plays in the dirt in the second half, the offense works again. So maybe we see more of that. But, man, like, I'm excited to see this guy play again. I really am. And the fact that, as Frank mentioned, the Saints could very well be without Marshawn Lattimore again. Like, we could see Hopkins step right in after the suspension and have a big game right away.
Yeah, that was my bold prediction of the week, too, is that Hopkins actually leads all of the ancillary pieces there on the Cardinals in fantasy points this week, just stepping right back in. And maybe last year the target number was down because the injury really took its toll on him and he couldn't get open. It's hard to get targets if you can't get open with those bad hamstrings and legs and soft tissue injuries that he was dealing with last year. Let's talk about his teammate for a second, though. If it's not Hopkins, maybe it's Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore, Frank, you've got it wide receiver 27. Pat's got him at 36. ECR in between you guys at 31. So, Frank, Rondale Moore certainly has more opportunity and a pathway to targets. Will he take advantage of that in week 7?
That is the hope, but man, being the high guy on the Cardinals offense, this is not really a position that I wanted to be in heading into week 7. But Rondale Moore has played well the past couple of weeks. He has 8+ targets in back-to-back games, 22% target share on the season. I don't think things change much again without Marquise Brown. I think Hopkins just kind of steps in there, and this team is passing a lot, and I think that they will continue to pass a lot, and as a result, the volume should be there for Rondale Moore. He's clearly better than like AJ Green or a Robbie Anderson, who I don't think is going to play a full complement of snaps in this game. They're still dealing with injuries to the running back. So again, I think lots of passing volume, and we should see that go to Rondale Moore. He's got back to playing in the slot. His first week back was weird. He was playing a lot on the outside. The past 2 weeks back to playing the slot, 39 of his 46 routes from the slot. Last week, low average depth of target, likely caps his upside, but I do think we see 7 or 8 targets, and as a result, that pushes him inside the top 30 as a wide receiver this week.
All right. How about you, Pat? Your thoughts on Rondale Moore in week 7?
Frank and I are both in spots we don't want to be in with Rondale Moore. He's making a bet on the Arizona offense that he doesn't want to really place, and I am a long-time Rondale Moore truther. I hate being below consensus on him, but it's that Cliff Kingsbury tax. I just don't really believe in this offense, and as much as I like Rondale, he scored 1 touchdown in 17 NFL games. So, like, he needs volume to pay off. And who knows if he's going to get it in this offense. You'd like to think he would. I hope they just keep using him as a traditional slot receiver, but who knows, man.
All right, let's move on to the next part of our show, which is players that I am higher on than the ECR. And this is usually where Pat likes to beat me up. Although, in the running back section there, we actually had some meeting of the minds there, which is a nice change of pace, but taking some shellackings here on the program. All right, Chris Olave, I've got at 24, ECR at 42. Now, obviously, that's been moving up a little bit as we get to the shorter week here with the chances of Michael Thomas not playing again in this game. So Chris Olave's value, Pat, in your opinion, what is it this week if he is indeed on the field, Michael Thomas is not, and you're looking again at a very thin wide receiver core for the Saints?
Not only do we agree, Joe, I'm actually higher on him than you are. I've got him at wide receiver 22.
I've lived long enough. It's happened. I'm so excited. I'm so emotional. This is great. This is really, it took 7 weeks, but I finally got one. All right, let's go. Why? Tell everybody why.
Yeah, no Michael Thomas, no Jarvis Landry. I may be a little less excited about Olave than I would be if Jameis were at quarterback, and we could see Jameis yet. But still, I mean, Olave, he has been getting targets. He's been getting air yards. He can run after the catch, and he's been getting deep targets, like the high value targets. So there's a lot to like here, and the matchup against Arizona is pretty juicy too.
All right, let's get to the next one here. Allen Lazard, I've got ranked very aggressively this week as wide receiver 13. He's been incredibly consistent. ECR's got him at 17. I don't think that's good enough, Frank. I love this matchup. He's getting all these targets. I know Robert Tunyon's now a Phoenix run. He's from the Ashes. I get it. It's very exciting for Robert Tunyon. I understand that Romeo Doubs is still around, but Lazard seems to be the guy, and a matchup as good as this, I feel like the floor is so strong and the upside is there for a ceiling that maybe we haven't seen all year with Lazard. Your thoughts? Do you think ECR is wrong or I'm wrong?
I'm actually smack in the middle, so I'm one spot ahead of ECR. Have him at wide receiver 16, but I think it's a great spot for him. He has a great floor, as you mentioned. He has 100 or more yards or a touchdown in each game that he's played this season. Really good matchup going up against the Commanders. Now, I have him back-to-back with Amari Cooper. To me, that's like a coin flip. So if you wanted to have Lazard as your wide receiver 15, I don't have a problem with it. But either way, he's a high-end wide receiver too, and I think he's going to be in most people's lineups this week.
Okay, let's get to your listener mailbag questions. And of course, they come to us from our Discord channel, fantasypros.com/chat. It's free to join. It's fun. It's an amazing community of people. And if you're a premium Fantasy Pros subscriber, well, you get access to stages, the AMA channels, all that fun stuff, even our touchdown call channel, that contest we got going on where we're giving away Fantasy Pros dollars for swag on our shop. We're giving away autographed jerseys from Pristine Auction. It's awesome. Check it out for free at fantasypros.com/chat. Here's one from Pat687, not Pat Fitzmaurice. This is a different Pat. Do I trade Ramondre Stevenson and Devontae Adams for CMC and Michael Thomas in a full PPR format? This is a little dicey here, Pat, because what Pat has got going on here in this trade is taking CMC at a huge question mark back with Michael Thomas. Would you make this deal?
I would not make this deal. And I agree with the Fantasy Pros trade value chart, which gives a little more value to the Adams-Stevenson side. Now, if CMC gets traded to the 49ers tomorrow, please erase this tape and forget I said anything about that. But as of now, with CMC stuck in the lowly Panthers, I would not want to trade into that right now.
All right, Frank, your thoughts on this trade, too, because it does seem very dicey to take on an asset. And Michael Thomas has got another foot issue here that's just lingering, and we just seem to be nowhere closer to him playing. Yeah,
this is close for me. I wouldn't do it either. It's one of those trades where you're getting the best player in the deal, but you're also getting the worst player in the deal in Michael Thomas. I do think Devontae Adams is probably second best, then Ramondre Stevenson. I kind of like the idea of selling high on Ramondre Stevenson right now just because you don't know what's going to happen when Damian Harris is back, but keyword sell high. Don't just sell Ramondre Stevenson for the sake of selling him. I want nothing to do with Michael Thomas. He was a bust for me coming into the year. We've barely seen him play football over the past 2 years. Week one, I'll admit, it looked really bad. I was like, I got this completely wrong. But he just cannot get on the field. And there's a lot of question marks around the Saints right now, too. So I wouldn't do this trade either.
And Michael Thomas, when you know, just got ruled out for Thursday Night Football. See, look at that, right here live on the program as we're recording it. So good times there. So he'll be out yet again another week. Frank, real quick, before we let you go, your thoughts on Ramondre Stevenson rest of season here, even when Damian Harris does inevitably return? Is it Stevenson's backfield? Man, he has looked real good in that role.
I feel like it should be. He's the more dynamic back of the two. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He can do whatever's really asked of him. But if Damian Harris is back in the mix, he's going to have a role, whether it's, 10 to 12 carries, whatever it might be. I think that will knock Ramondre Stevenson down into like the RB2 range. But if anything happens to Harris, or for some reason, like they trade him, or I don't know, he just wins the lottery and he leaves the Patriots forever, I do think Ramondre Stevenson has legitimate league winning upside. So it's kind of hard to value him right now, rest of season. But if Damian Harris returns, he's probably more of an RB2.
Well, you have value rest of season and all the time. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at Roto_Frank and check out all of his great work at CBS Fantasy. One of my favorite folks out there. Frank, we appreciate you hanging out with us today and dropping your knowledge. Good luck to you and the rest of your teams the rest of the season. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Frank Stampfl and Pat Fitzmaurice, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at FantasyPros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.